Hello again, everyone. We're now joined by the general manager and by the head coach of the BC Lions, Ryan Rigmaiden and Buck Pierce. Again, to ask a question, please use the raise hand function to be added to the queue. Please mute your microphone until I indicate it is your turn to ask a question, and please limit yourself to one question and one follow-up. The first question is from Bob. Please go ahead, Bob.
Gentlemen, thank you for your time. First off, Jarrell Broxton, can you give us any sort of update on the negotiations with your tackle?
Yeah, we've had good conversations with he and his camp. We're going through it right now. At this stage, I think players and agents, have their expected value, and then obviously we've got to make this fit with the salary cap puzzle. So I think he's the best left tackle in the league. Tremendous player, tremendous for our room. Feel like things are positive. Feel like it can get done.
Follow-up question is on the rules. The same question I threw to Ed and Mark. One is roughing the passer. Do you see any possibility of that rule being altered? It's so black and white now that if you just graze the quarterback's helmet, it's a 15-yard penalty. And I understand we have to protect the quarterbacks, but at certain points it borders on the ridiculous in terms of what we see being called. And then the other rule that I have an issue with, and I think a lot of people do, is these rugby scrums that Mark Killam called it. I mean, you look at that playoff game between Winnipeg and Montreal. Stevie Scott gets driven back 2 yards, and an offensive lineman comes in. His forward progress has clearly been stopped, and they basically shove him into the end zone. So, I mean, is there any possibility that those two rules are going to be looked at and discussed in the rules meetings?
Yeah, Bob, we've got a ton of stuff that we're going to discuss. Frankly, I've only glanced over what the possibilities are going to be in terms of what is going to be discussed. So I share some of your frustration with that. I think there's times where, well, first of all, look, we absolutely have to protect the quarterback, but there's times where you see a DN ripping and dipping going around the arc. He's pushed by the tackle that he's just beaten, and his hand may graze the quarterback's helmet, and there's a flag. The contact didn't interrupt the play. It didn't interrupt the quarterback's motion or drop. Those things get frustrating. I do think the scrum that you just talked about, there were times last year where I felt like the whistle came on a little bit late, but we could probably do this with all the rules. So I'll have more of an accurate comment once we know more getting out of the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Next question is from Felix Gally. Vas-y, Felix.
Hey, guys. Darnell Sankey became available in December, and a week later he was headed to BC. Can you tell me about the process of getting him to the Lions, and what kind of player are you getting in Darnell Sankey?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Darnell's somebody that I think has the league's respect. He's that true alpha Mike linebacker, a true thumper. We felt like that's been something that we've been lacking a little bit. We tried to get him a couple of years ago when he was coming back from the UFL, and ultimately I think he went to Montreal, but he's a tremendous player, tremendous leader. We felt like we had to upgrade the front seven in terms of that kind of toughness and mentality for leadership there. So it was an easy decision for us. He's a West Coast guy, so the moment he was released, we'd reached out to him and his camp and got it done fairly quickly. So we expect him to come in and be the same guy that he's been for the last several years in the league and help us improve on defense.
Yeah, I'll just echo what Ryan said. Yeah, I mean, when you watch him play at such a high level for the years that he's done it, you watch how his defense and his teammates respond to him. That's the kind of guy that we want in our building, and he's done it at a high level for many years. And as the conversations went on, a lot of good conversations and getting to know him a little bit more as a person, it was going to be a great fit for us.
Thank you.
Merci, Felix. Next question is from JC Habit. Please go ahead, JC.
I'll just build on that real quick. With the addition of Sankey, we already saw you guys move on from Josh Woods, but what does that mean for Micah Alway and his role with the team?
Yeah, Mike is under contract, and so we haven't made any decisions. We will be doing that just across the board. Buck and I and Neil are meeting, and then of course, as things get closer to the CFL draft and everything, we tend to have more of these meetings. But Micah played hard for us last year. He did well. Very happy with a lot of the things he did. We haven't made any decisions. Mike has played Will before. We've got some young guys that we're very, very excited about. We just felt like adding Sankey was the best thing for our defense in terms of being bringing in a proven product at that Mike spot.
You guys obviously have the best quarterback in the league. I don't think there's any debate there. In terms of the backup spot, is that a priority to upgrade this offseason with both Jeremiah Mazzoli and Chase Bryce as pending free agents?
Yeah, I think you're always trying to, look at continuing to build the competition in that room. I loved our room last year. I thought all the guys, those 3 guys, did an excellent job of support and growth, and providing the essential things that they needed to do for us to be successful on offense. But you're always going to look at, providing depth, and you're always going to want to be able to add competition. And, this offseason, just like many other teams, we're not the only one. You're going to be looking to add some depth and some competition in that room. But, just to speak on last year, very proud of the way that those guys came together, and Nathan would be, just, I think the help that they provided Nathan within that room was as strong as anywhere that I've been.
I'll say this too, JC. I think from a roster building standpoint, you're looking at, this year is just a different year in terms of what's available in that backup market. A couple years ago, it was strong. You saw some of the quarterbacks that were kind of getting into the twilight of their careers, and they kind of circled back like Cody did in Edmonton. And so when you look across the landscape, I think it's different this year. And then you're also weighing in that experience with developing the young guys. And so we've got some guys on our neg list that we've been chasing for a long time. You're always trying to develop that next guy. The biggest thing for us is it should Nathan ever go down, we need to know that we have a guy that can come in and execute. And so we'll look at free agency just like we do every year. We'll see where we're at with the neg list and see who's available. I agree. Nathan's a special player, and we feel really good when the ball's in his hands. But this is something that we look at every year.
Without naming any names, would it be intriguing to you guys to have a Canadian in that backup role and be able to maintain that as a ratio spot should anything happen to Nathan?
I think it's a huge bonus. Yeah, if something did happen to Nathan, you wouldn't have to change the ratio around. There's not too many of those guys. And so, we're going to look at all possibilities, and we're going to make the best decision for us.
Thanks, gentlemen.
You bet.
Thank you, JC. Next question's from John Hodge. Please go ahead, John.
Thanks for doing this, gentlemen. First question for Ryan. You touched on Darrell Broxton. I'm wondering about Dejon Allen, a guy who was out for most of the year. Is he still factoring into your plans at right tackle potentially for 26?
Yeah, he is. The biggest thing with Dejon, as you guys know, is he missed a bunch of time with injuries, and so we've got to make sure that he's okay. We've got to have our doctors check him out and make sure that he's 100% before we commit to anything. So obviously he's played at a high level before, and if he's healthy, then we certainly want him back. So you guys know me. I like building things up through the offensive and defensive lines. I don't think that's ever going to change for me. So protecting Nathan and being able to run the ball, that's something that we have to do to find success. So if Dejon is healthy, we certainly want him back.
I know Dejon's a West Coast guy. Is your staff going to get the opportunity to look at him before, say, the communication window opens next month?
Yes. Yep. There are plans to do that.
Okay, perfect. Last one is for Buck. Obviously, very experienced coach, but first year as a head coach. I'm wondering how you feel you did as a head coach in your first year, and if there's anything you're planning to change in the way that you handle business in 2026.
Well, to your first part of your question, we didn't finish where we wanted to finish. So, we got to find ways to, continue to play another week longer. So, we're going to look at everything. I'm going to look at myself as I do every year, no matter what, title I hold or wherever I am. Look at our process and, how we can build on the things we did well, and how can we improve on the things that we need to improve on. And, you know, there's that goes into a lot of things, right? So, excited about the group that we have. Excited about the growth and the steps that we took this season. And I think, you know, in talking to the players and, you know, the way things ended last year, everybody's excited to get back and continuing to build on what we started there. And yeah, I think, you know, continue to just grow and learn as a coach and as a person in this role. And that's really how I've approached everything. So that really doesn't change for me.
Thanks, guys.
I'll say that. Sorry,
Go
John,
ahead.
just to piggyback just a little bit, you know, from the administration's perspective, you know, the job that Buck and his staff did last year was just absolutely incredible. Not only on the field, but you know, the camaraderie, the brotherhood in the building, I think has never been as strong as it is right now. You know, we're talking about the free agents that are coming up. You know, I've been told, and I truly believe this, that every one of our free agents wants to come back. They believe in what Buck's doing. They want to be a part of it. They know that we have a roster that can come in and challenge for Grey Cups right now. And so, yeah, things, you know, we didn't end where we wanted to be, but we were, I'll say this, I came into Sask much more confident this year than what we did the previous year. And so I thought the team was extremely well prepared. I thought we fought to the bitter end. That game could have changed several times. And just from my perspective and ownership's perspective, couldn't be more happy with Buck and what the staff did.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, John. Next question is from Paul Lapalisse. Please go ahead, Paul.
You guys get saved later in the day. I was like 8th usually in the questions. Now I'm like 4th. Everybody's tired. Don't want to talk to you guys anymore. I got 2 questions. First, Riggs, could you talk about, like, you know, as we're all watching a lot of college football, could you talk about how NIL is affecting you as a, you know, as a personnel department trying to bring guys in and everything? And then after that, I'll ask Buck a question.
Yeah, you bet. I think the landscape is changing, and I think our league is going to have some challenges in the very near future, especially with quarterbacks. And so you're looking at what some of these quarterbacks are getting paid via NIL. And listen, I'm happy they are, but you know, I don't know how many quarterbacks are going to come up for an $80 or $90,000 Canadian contract when they just made $4 million. And so I think that's a challenge for us, but also the NFL. And you're seeing players in college stay longer than they ever have. Lapo, it used to be players would jump to the NFL the quickest they possibly could. Now they're staying and petitioning the NC2A for a possible 6th and 7th year.
Game,
so, yeah. So that certainly is changing. I think it's going to be a challenge that we're going to have to deal with, because it's not just a few quarterbacks anymore, and it's not just a few players anymore. You know, you're looking, some teams do it as a collective of, hey, every one of our players is going to get 50 to 100 grand, no matter who you are. And then some teams are doing it on a case by case basis. And so, you know, with all of our quarterbacks, 2 things are happening. Number 1, they're getting paid, but number 2, they're changing teams all the time. I remember when I first started, we had an alert if a player had transferred twice. Usually there was some things that went on. Now it's almost the opposite. You know, players are nomads. And so it doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. I'm happy that these guys are getting compensated. I truly believe they deserve it. But with the no guardrails, it's troubling. And so we're going to have to get ahead of this problem. And frankly, we've talked about it before in the league meetings, and I'm sure that's going to be more on the agenda in the next couple of years.
Awesome. Buck, 2 things, like, tell me what surprised you about Nathan Rourke after a year, or when you first got with him. And the other thing, what gives you less anxiety now? I know your first year, not that, like, there's something that's like, oh my God, like, what are you like, oh God, I've got that handled now, year 2, you know what I mean?
Your first question on Nathan, you know, and we've had conversations about him. I think everybody sees the product that he puts out there on the field. But I think you just see he's still in a position of growth. There's still so much more room for him to grow, and his mindset really hasn't changed. It doesn't matter if he's had a good game or a bad game. His process stays consistent and it stays the same. in this league, you see quarterbacks that win the MOP and have all this success. They've been in the CFL for a number of years. It's very rare that you have a guy that's in year 2 or year 3 that's going to, win that award and be playing at the level that he's playing. So he has still so much more growth to go, and just his overall football IQ and still learning to funnel information and have conversations about himself, continuing to want to be coached. That's probably the biggest thing that I think people don't see, is his approach to the game. He knows that he doesn't have all the answers. He knows that it's hard to win. He knows that he has to put the time in, and if he doesn't, he won't be successful. But he puts the time in. He puts a ton of time into himself and into his teammates. The growth and the steps that he took this year in leading this team and being the guy that everybody thought that he could be was really impressive. And to see that on a daily basis as a coach and, someone that, is responsible for the team was excellent to see. I think when you look at throughout the course of the season with him and you start breaking down game by game and you look at certain things, he's so highly critical of himself. That just tells you right there that he understands that he's not there yet. And he's not a guy that's going to allow himself to believe that he's there. He understands his responsibilities as a quarterback and what it takes to play at this level and play consistently good football and getting better. Cool. And that's the most exciting thing about it as a coach. Being with him, understanding, wow, we just scratched the surface. And what I told the guys as we exited back in November, the foundation's set and we've taken the steps to get to a certain point. So we got to make sure we start there this year. We can't start and take steps back. We have to start where we finished and continue to build on the things that we need to build on, which are, a lot of things, which is the exciting part about this team. To your second question, Lapo, everything's, as you know, it's a 24-hour job, 365, right? So to be able to handle things that come up unexpectedly, to be able to communicate with guys throughout the course of the off season, I think you have a little bit more of an understanding of scheduling and what players need and personalities within your group and how to coach certain guys. I think as a new coach coming in, you want to set a certain standards and expectations and those things, and you have to build those relationships, and those relationships take time, right? And I think that's the biggest thing as a coach is, especially as a head coach when you're coming in, is continuing to build those relationships and put those pieces in place. And that's an ongoing job. That's an ongoing job. Every year is a different group of guys. Yeah, there'll be some consistent pieces, but every year comes with its own challenges. And I think as a head coach, those are things that are going to happen, but until you actually go through them and figure out how to navigate those waters, there's a lot of growth and learning that comes with that. And just like I said earlier, that's what I love about the job. I love being, able to, help people and see the success and the growth of the organization.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Lapo.
See you, Lapo.
Thank you, Paul. Next question is from Jay Janaware. Please go ahead, Jay.
Hi, guys. Nice to see you. Question for both of you guys. You've had a few months to think about it. You came within one game of making it to the Grey Cup, but I'm wondering, Buck and Ryan, what were you missing? What was that one thing that you wish you would have had that would have pushed you over the top?
I I think there's a, kind of just going back to Nathan, I think everybody is as great and is fantastic as this staff was. There's always a period of adjustment. And so, for the players, they're coming from a different staff that had to get used to what Buck and his staff were bringing in. And so, the one thing we really focused on was, grit and mental toughness and what that means. I think we started off slow this year, and there's a variety of reasons of why that happened. But, Buck said it earlier, I don't think in the West, I don't think you can do that. And so, if we start off just a little bit hotter, I think there's an excellent chance that we get a home playoff game and we end up hosting. But, the way things ended in SAS, we fought all game, and that's just football. I think we can all go back and second guess ourselves, and that's what everybody does when things don't work out. But, in the moment, I loved what the staff was doing. I love the attitude of the players all season long. When we were 2-5, there could have been finger pointing. There could have been players, huddling up in the corner and saying things about other coaches or teammates or something. And we didn't do that. I truly think there's a brotherhood in our locker room. There's a strength there that we haven't had in years past. And that's what was able to propel us from 2-5 to ultimately get 11 wins and the home playoff game. So, just looking back, for me, just the one thing I learned is the West is always going to be tough. I think we all know that. But, you can't start 2-5 and expect to have the outcome that maybe you want. So the good thing for us is the culture that Buck instilled in training camp last year. That's not something we have to start over with. That expectation of quality and perseverance, that's already there, and the players know what to expect. So I'm excited to get into camp and hit the ground running. I think players are going to get more comfortable with Buck and the staff, and I think we're even better.
I think if it was, one thing, it'd be easy. It's never one thing. That's what makes this game great. I think overall, every year you look at yourself and you look at areas that you need to improve, and you look at yourself first and how do you do those things better, and you lean on your staff, you talk to your players, you talk to the people in the building, and then you attack that process. This game comes down to making the most of your opportunities when your opportunities are there, and being prepared for those opportunities. It's in this game, you play multiple games throughout the course of the season, and I think early in the year we weren't out of place yet to where we could overcome mistakes.
Yeah.
And that was probably the biggest thing for us is not having the mental toughness, the belief that we could get to where we wanted to get to. So we had to look at ourselves and focus on the things that we needed to do to get better. And that's what we've done. And there was no big shift. There was no big change. There was no big meeting halfway through the year. It was a focus on continuing to be a better team and being better for each other, and what we had to do to accomplish those goals. And that's the standard. That's the culture that Ryan's talking about. Is getting everybody to do their part for something bigger than them. What you're missing, I think every year is different. I believe we have the talent, and we're going to continue to add talent and build a great roster, but our expectations are still going to be through the roof, as they should be.
Ryan, first time we've chatted with you since the CFLPA report cards came out last week. How much do you shudder when they come out, and is there cause concern the fact that you received an F and that you're only at a C? Can you just talk to me about that?
Yeah, no, I don't shudder. I think it's an important part of the process. First of all, you better be talking to your player. Like, none of this should be a surprise. You should be talking to your team leaders. You should be talking to your players throughout the season on things that you need to get better with. And some of those things have been addressed. We hired a new performance coach who'd been tremendous. He had a direct link with success on the field and the reduction of injuries, especially the second half of the year. There's some things that are kind of head scratchers. And when you talk to some of the vets, they say, man, I don't know how that vote was. I totally disagree. I think this is fantastic, but every team has challenges. We certainly do. The best thing for us is that, my boss, Dwayne, and everybody's boss, our owner, Amar Doman, they give us the resources. And so, the limitations we've had with our facility, that's been addressed, frankly, for the last couple of years. We've been working on fixing some of those things. I think you guys all saw the plans that are coming out for how we're going to do those remodels and some of the other things. So we've got a ways to go with some of this stuff. Some of it we've been working on for years. We just have had limitations with our building and the city, frankly. And so I love working for Dwayne and Amar because they always ask me, Riggs, what do you need? What can we help with? And so we'll take the next step. We talk to our players literally daily. And again, with that leadership group, you're always going to be asking them, hey, what can we do to improve? So we'll focus on those and we'll get better again next year.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jay. JC, we won't be able to get back to you. And Justin, if you have one quick last question, please go ahead.
I had a few, but I'll ask one. Ryan, how did the signing of Payton Barber come about?
It was interesting. I've known his agent for a long, long time. He had reached out to me and just said, hey, do you know who Payton is? And of course, I knew who he was. He said, would you guys be interested in signing him? And I said, yeah, if he's healthy, it's certainly something that we'd look at. He's 31 years old, and I think he's got over 2,500 rushing yards in the NFL. He played at a high level. He's a big physical running back that can catch the football. He's a great fit in Buck's offense. So I was only concerned with two things. Number one, his age. Number two, his health. And so when those checked out, I had a conversation with Buck and said, hey, what do you think about this? Because frankly, Justin, these are the type of guys, either they're going to be on the roster or they're not. A 31-year-old running back that's got 6 years in the NFL is probably not going to go to your practice squad. And so we just wanted to make sure that was the best decision for us in terms of fit. And this kid can absolutely run the football. He's a big physical dude. He wants to play football. From everything I've heard from he and his agent, he's done very well with his money. He's saved. He wants to play football again. And so after talking to him, it was an easy decision of just, hey, let's make sure this is a good fit for us and then bring in the best quality player we can possibly bring in.
What was he doing in between there? His time in between football?
He'd had a back injury, so he was getting healthy. He'd had surgery. I think he was trying to get back into the league, but as I'm sure kind of after that 28, 29-year mark, some teams just aren't interested anymore. And so we've seen it time and time again of players up here that are performing extremely well. But, we just lost a player, Rob Carter, to the Indianapolis Colts. I promise you, if Rob were 28 years old, they would not have done that. So usually about 27, 28 is when the NFL starts cutting that off. So, Payton's been working out. He sent me a bunch of clips of him running around and moving. He actually trains with several CFL players. So I was able to talk to them as well. And again, we just wanted to sign the best player possible.
Could he compete to be your starter or replace James Butler?
The one thing I love about Buck and his staff is, the guys, the vets have experience and they've earned that right. But I promise you, with Buck and with me, if he's the best player, he's going to start. And that goes across the board.
Thank you, guys.
You bet.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Buck.